Imagine you've got to find the exact average app engagement time for literally millions of iPad users.
You can't possibly survey all of them, right? It would take lifetimes, cost an absolute fortune, and honestly, the data would change before you even finished collecting it. So how do you solve this seemingly impossible math problem? Well, the secret lies in what might just be the most powerful concept in all of statistics.
By the end of this explainer, you're going to understand the absolute magic of the Central Limit Theorem. We'll uncover the formula behind it and exactly how you can apply it to real, practical examples. We're breaking it all down step by step so you can totally master it. Section 1, the ultimate statistics shortcut. Okay, take a look at the contrast here. On the left, we've got our original population data. It's messy. It's totally unpredictable. It might be heavily skewed or just look like absolute chaos. But over on the right, we have something beautiful. The smooth, predictable, perfectly symmetric normal bell curve. This is the distribution of our sample means, and it brilliantly shows off our core concept. No matter how chaotic your original data is, if you just scoop up enough handfuls of that data, meaning taking large enough samples, and you average each handful, those averages will always inevitably stack up into this neat, predictable bell shape. It's kind of like magic, but it's just math. Section 2, the Central Limit Theorem. All right, so here is the formal Central Limit Theorem. As your sample size, which we call n, increases, the distribution of your sample means approaches a normal distribution. But there are two absolutely critical rules you've got to remember here. First, this new normal distribution has the exact same mean as the original messy data. So if the true population average is 50, your beautiful bell curve of sample means is perfectly centered right on 50. Second, the variance of this new distribution shrinks. Specifically, it's the original variance divided by the sample size. And since standard deviation is just the square root of variance, this means the standard deviation of your new sampling distribution is the original standard deviation divided by the square root of n. Now, before we go any further, let's clear up a massive roadblock. I once had a confused student ask me, wait, is n the number of times I do the experiment or just the sample size? Look, this is a crucial distinction. The variable n is strictly the number of values that are averaged together in one single sample. It is completely unrelated to the number of times you repeat the entire experiment. So if you ask 50 people their age and average those results, your n is exactly 50, period.
Section 3, the standard error formula.
To solve actual problems, we need a new standard deviation for our bell curve, which statisticians like to call the standard error of the mean. Here's how you find it. Step 1, identify the population mean. That's our Greek letter mu. Step 2, grab the original population standard deviation, or sigma. And step 3, calculate the standard error by dividing that original standard deviation by the square root of your sample size, n. This shiny new number tells us exactly how far off our sample mean might be from the true, actual population mean.
Okay, quick check to see if we're on the same page. Based on that formula, what do you think happens to our standard error spread if we make our sample size n much, much larger? Think about it for a second. You're dividing by the square root of n. So if that denominator gets massive, the standard error physically shrinks. A huge sample size gives you a super tight, narrow bell curve, meaning your sample average is extremely likely to be dead-on accurate to the true population average. Section 4, example, the soccer match. Let's ground this with a real-life scenario. Imagine an over 40 recreational soccer league. We know the match times are normally distributed. Look at the variables we've got here. The true population mean is 2.0 hours. The standard deviation is 0.5 hours. We randomly draw a sample size n of 50 matches. So our problem? Find the probability that our sample mean, the average time of these specific 50 matches, falls somewhere between 1.8 and 2.3 hours. Here's exactly how we tackle this. Step 1, calculate our standard error. We take our original standard deviation of 0.5 and divide it by the square root of our sample size, 50. Step 2, establish those boundaries. Our lower limit is 1.8 and our upper limit is 2.3. Step 3, we use the normal CDF function on a TI-84 calculator. You just plug in your lower value, your upper value, your mean of 2, and finally that crucial standard error we just calculated. And boom, the calculator spits out 0.9977. This perfectly illustrates the sheer power of this theorem.
Even with an original standard deviation of half an hour, just by averaging 50 games together, there is a massive 99.77% chance that our sample's average game time will land right in that tight little window between 1.8 and 2.3 hours.
Section 5. Example, iPad app users.
All right, let's circle back to our opening problem, measuring iPad app engagement. Here's our gathered data. The true mean engagement time is 8.2 minutes, with a standard deviation of exactly 1.0 minute. We pull a random sample size of 60 users. Our goal is to find the probability that the average engagement time of this specific sample sits between 8 and 8.5 minutes.
Once again, we just follow our simple steps. First, we find the standard error. We take our original standard deviation of 1 and divide it by the square root of 60, which gives us right around 0.13. That 0.13 is literally the key to unlocking this whole problem. Next, we fire up the calculator's normal CDF function again. Input the lower boundary of 8, the upper boundary of 8.5, our population mean of 8.2, and our shiny new standard error of 0.13.
And the result is 0.9293. So what does that actually mean? It means almost 93% of the time, if you grab a completely random group of 60 iPad users, their average engagement time is going to fall perfectly into that tiny 30-second window between 8 and 8.5 minutes. That is unbelievably precise.
Wait, hold on. This is actually really important. Let's throw a total curveball here. What if your boss doesn't care about the probability of a specific time window? What if they walk in and say, I need to know the 90th percentile for sample average app engagement time? We've got to pivot. We can't use normal CDF anymore because we are working backward from a percentage to find a specific time limit.
For this one, we use the invnorm function on the calculator. You just tell it the area to the left, which is 0.90 for the 90th percentile, followed by your mean of 8.2, and yep, that exact same standard error of 0.13. The result, 8.37 minutes. So you can confidently tell your boss that 90% of the time, the average app engagement of a 60-person sample is going to be 8.37 minutes or less.
Section 6, Summary and Next Steps.
Let's quickly lock in the critical takeaways from this explainer. First, no matter how wild the original data is, sample means will form a beautiful normal bell curve if your sample is large enough. Second, the population mean stays exactly the same in this new curve. Third, the magic key to literally all of this is the standard error formula. Just divide your original standard deviation by the square root of your sample size. And finally, use normal CDF when you need a probability and invnorm when you are given a percentile.
So, you now know how to predict the averages of massive populations from just a handful of data. Pretty cool, right? But let me leave you with this. If the central limit theorem reveals these perfectly hidden patterns when we look at averages, what kind of bizarre mathematical secrets emerge when we look at the total, sum of our samples instead? To find out, you'll have to jump into our next explainer where we dive into the central